Hey, this is John with Smoky Guitars. Our mission is to keep your axe playing its best at all times. On this channel, we'll cover some basic setups, all the way up to pro level repairs. I'll show you tips, tricks, even some trade secrets. Our mission is to save rock and roll, one guitar at a time. All right, everybody. I know this is early in the morning. I got me a fresh cup of coffee here. Let me explain a little bit of something what we're doing today, a reconstruction of this Telecaster. Hey everybody, this is John with Smoky Guitars. We're saving rock and roll one guitar at a time. I want to take a moment to kind of share with you guys what liking and subscribing does for the channel. We do a lot of charity work for new students, for young kids that are trying to learn guitar. A lot of those kids can't afford a real expensive guitar or even the repairs of a starter guitar. So by you liking and subscribing, it helps us keep those costs down. Do your part. Help save rock and roll one guitar at a time. This is a Tele I bought several years ago, and I went ahead and did some research on like the 50s and 60s style Teles. I really want to take the bridge assembly back to an original ashtray type with the 3 brass saddles on it. I'm going to switch out the pickguard to a mint green pickguard. So a little bit of history on this. The plastics that they used back in the day, the white pickguards would oxidize and age to look like it turned out to be like a mint color. And I have another Telecaster that I have a mint one on. And because I'm taking the saddle back to like a road-worn classic Telecaster saddle, I'm switching out the knobs and the switch and the control plate to be a road-worn control plate. So they won't be as bright and as shiny as what's on here now. Also, I bought some, right now these have locking tuners on it. See the knobs back here? I like these locking tuners. They're the vintage style locking tuners. But I'm going to actually take these back to the vintage locking tuners where they won't have this knob. They'll just have the split post here. The more and more I use those split posts, the more I like them. So I'm going to switch these out to those style tuners. I may end up reusing these on a different guitar somewhere, but I really do like those vintage tuners. So I'm going to switch these out to, and they're going to be more of a nickel or a soft finish to it, not so bright chromy looking. If you notice, this neck they call it a baseball bat because it is big. It is fat neck, and that's true to the 50s and very early 60s style Telecasters. So today what we're going to do is we're going to get it all prepped and ready for the new parts. So we are going to pull the plates. We're not going to take out the electronics, but we're going to pull the plates and kind of reconfigure those electronics to be more standard. We're going to take this bridge off, taking off the pickup. We're going to leave the pickup in place, but we're going to take all the other parts off. We're going to take the pickguard off, take this pickup off, and take all the tuners off. We'll go ahead and install the new pickguard, just taking it off the older guitar, putting it on this guitar. We are also going to, I have a vintage looking fender plate. This came off of a Stratocaster. And it's a late 90s Stratocaster, and it was originally gold, but the gold finishes all come off, and the only reason I can really tell it's gold because in where these screws go still has a little bit of gold finish to it, but the rest of it is kind of chromed out and aged very well, except for this one spot where they put that sticker. That's one of the reasons I take all those shipping stickers off when I first get a guitar, is because it'll evenly age that base plate or that neck plate, where if you leave the sticker on where that sticker is, it's not gonna age. So I'm gonna see what I can do about maybe speeding up a little bit of the aging process right there. Maybe take a little bit of steel wool and kind of dull that down a little bit. But we're gonna be changing out this neck plate to kind of that classic Fender neck plate. A couple other little things we're gonna do. We're gonna change out the strap buttons, put some vintage style strap buttons. Right now they have locking strap buttons on there for locking straps. So I think the first thing we're going to do is go ahead and unwire and take apart this control switch. So we're going to need a small flathead screwdriver to take these knobs off. and then a screwdriver to take the plate off itself. See if this one will work. Perfect. So it's got a little set screw in there. You just take that set screw off and it comes right off. There we go. I use that magnetic plate. So whenever you lift this up, you see this tape right here. I have the wires all taped up right here. It's because the cavity in a Telecaster, when they build this, is deeper where the switch is than where the non-switch is. So when I switched them around, I had to make sure that this didn't get grounded against that cavity. So I put this protective tape on there just to keep it from grounding. We don't need that anymore because we're going to turn it back to kind of a traditional. So we're going to take this switch off. So we need to pull this little nipple off. Then what we have to do after we get that selector switch, that three-way switch undone, we have to disconnect or loosen up these pots. And that's as easy as it is to take a plate off. Not much to it. So now what we have to do is figure out how we're going to reconfigure our switches to allow it to go back to a normal configuration. So while we're in here, I want to double check a few things, make sure my wiring's looking okay, that we don't see any welds that are coming undone. Everything looks good. So what we'll do is we'll just push this back into the cavity for now. That's where it's going to live. Let's do the tuners next. The reason I say that is because once we start taking all this apart, these pickups are going to be loose, and I don't want them just flopping around. So I think what we'll do is just do the tuners. But before I do that, I'm just going to take some tape. So this isn't all flopping around. I'm going to take some tape and kind of tape here, just to keep this stuff from coming out of the cavity and causing any damage or anything. So I'll just take some tape and just kind of tape everything into place, and then this tape will be real simple to just remove later. So we got our tuners taken off, which is very easily done. There's just a screw on either side of the tuner on these classic style tuners, just a small screw on either side. You can kind of see the holes here where they just slide in. So we just undid those, and those come right off. Hey, while we're back here, I have the guitar back here, this neck plate. So the one thing you got to remember when you're dealing with unbolting a neck, some things you have to be careful of. First of all, you don't want any tension on your strings. You want all the strings to be loose, and if you're going to have strings on the guitar, you want all those strings to be loose. Second of all, you want the holes that are in the body, the screws, these screws should slide into those holes with a tight slide. It shouldn't be a loose slide. It should be kind of a tight slide into those holes, but you don't want your body to be threaded. You just want the neck to be threaded, and it's important because if you do it that way, the body and the neck will completely seat together. If they're both threaded, they have a tendency of not seating real well. So you want to make sure that your body is not threaded. I use an old candle that my wife bought. It does have a little bit of scent to it, but you see all the holes in the wax? That's where I take my screw and I go in and I grab just a little bit of wax. So it kind of lubricates that wood and that screw as it goes in. You just need to put a little bit on the tip. And then once I get some on the tip, I just kind of push it into the threads. And then that's going to be enough to kind of lubricate it as that screw goes through. It's enough to lubricate that body. There's I'm going to get rid of some of these tools that are laying around in the neck. What I suggest you do is you stand that guitar up I'm going to get the angle right so you can see what I'm doing, guys. Don't worry. All right, so I get that guitar up, and I'd make sure that neck is fully seated into that pocket, and it's where it should be. I will grab that neck plate and a couple of screws that have been lubricated with the wax. I'll go ahead and put those in there, and then I take some wood clamps and I'll clamp that neck so it doesn't have a tendency of moving. And it holds everything nice and tight, because you want that neck, the line here and this line here, to be tight. All right, you want it to be straight and tight. So what I'll first do is I'll line that up, put a wood clamp on here, and then I will hand tighten these screws down. And I'm not putting a whole lot of force on them right now. I'm just kind of getting them in place. And then if I don't put them too tight, I can always go back and readjust that neck position to make sure that it's nice and tight and seated. Everything's nice, seated tight. That plate looks so much better. Kind of that used, road-worn look to it, which is what I'm kind of going for on this guitar. So what you may want to do after you get that plate on is go back with the towel, because that wax will, especially if you put too much. At the beginning I used to put wax on all the threads, and it would cause wax to come out of the screw holes. As I'm pushing through it, it'd force that wax out, so I'd have a bunch of wax all the way around the screw head. So I've learned you only really need to wax like the first quarter to half inch of the threads, and then they'll kind of self-lubricate as it goes through. Man, tell me what you think. Does that look better with that aged Fender logo neck plate on there? It does to me, except for that one spot. All right, so what we're going to do is go ahead and take the bridge assembly apart. So there are 4 screws underneath the saddles that we have to get to. Now, because we don't have any string tension, a lot of times you can turn the saddle and get to that screw. On either end, that's pretty easy. In the middle, you have to turn 2 of them to get to that screw. So what we're going to do is we're going to take the pickup and release the pickup from the bridge assembly first. That way, whenever we're done, we can just lift it straight off. Now there's some springs. Sometimes they're springs, sometimes they're cushion, like little rubber cushions. I'm not real sure which ones are underneath here, but we'll want to make sure once we get this bridge off to capture those. Make sure that we gather those up, because we'll reuse those. So first one we'll do is this one that's underneath the E string. We'll move that saddle sideways like that. See if our electric screwdriver is going to be strong enough. Yeah. So we got all 4 of those screws out. So this will just now lift that out of the way. Pretty simple, huh? Not a whole lot to these. Now, what do we see when we pick all this up? I'm going to explain what we have going on here. This is a wire that's a ground that grounds the strings and the bridge, right? And then, of course, this is your pickup. And then these rubber little cushions here acts as kind of springs. What I'm going to do is I'm going to grab the screws that came out of here and reinstall those onto the cushions and into the pickguard or pickup. And the reason I'm going to do that is so I know exactly what screws go back where, and I don't lose any of this stuff. So I will put the cushion back on the screw just like this, and that just kind of pushes into place. And then we'll just take this and screw it back into the pickup. Next thing we're going to be doing after we get this kind of resettled is we're going to take a look at our pickguard. Like I said, we are going to reinstall a pickguard that's on a different guitar currently. So we got the pickguard off. That easy, right? Undo the screws, uh, undo the pickup, and it comes right off. Now the older vintage style Telecasters didn't have the two pickup screws. The pickup actually mounted right into the body, and then your pickguard went over the top of it. So the only way you could adjust the pickup height are the pickguard off. So they since then redesigned it to where you can adjust the pickup heights without having to pull the pickguard. Let's go ahead and pull the tape. So we are going to start off by taking a look at the switch plate. So the switch plate I ordered is just a road-worn Fender genuine part switch plate. So what does road-worn mean? Well, it should look as if it had been on the road for a while, been on tour. People sweat, not quite as shiny, a little tarnished. And this one actually does a pretty good relic job on here. I'm going to move through the light so you can see that it is not quite as pristine as the last one, which is exactly what I was looking for. So this is going to work out really well. It'll look really good on this. So we're gonna put that on first, and then I have a road-worn bridge assembly. Now this has the three saddles just like I wanted, but I'm not going to utilize these saddles, and I'll show you why once I get this open. This even came with road-worn screws, which have been oxidized and kind of look used, because with these three saddle bridges, the screws are very apparent. Well, that other bridge kind of hid those screws because it was 6 saddles, not 3. So this is one of the parts that I dry fitted, made sure the screws holes lined up and allowed the string holes to line up with the through body construction, made sure the pick guard or the pickup worked through here. So everything should line up pretty good. But we're going to do this one second. And when we get to this, I'll talk about these saddles versus the saddles that I've ordered. Another thing to understand about the wear on a guitar, if you have a nitro finish, those finishes are meant to age and show their age. So because of the temperature change they go through and all kinds of things, you'll see checking, which on a guitar body, when you're talking about checking, it almost looks like the finish is all cracked everywhere. And there's a way to do that unnaturally on a nitro guitar. But the guitars that are made with a poly finish, and this is why relicing is so tough. On a poly finish, you don't get that checking. Polyurethane finishes are hard candy shells, and you'll find chipping is what you find. You don't find where your arm wears through a poly spot. This is typically where a guitarist will have his arm when he's strumming, right here. Now on a nitro, you'll see that finish start breaking through, and your bare wood will start showing. On a poly finish, you don't get that. That's why, and truly, that's one of the only reasons why some guitarists prefer a nitro finish over a poly finish. If they're looking for durability, a poly finish is the most durable finish you're going to get. Normally, if it's done good and it's done right, it can take a beating and come through looking like a champ. Inside this cavity, we have the control 3-way switch, we have a volume pot, and we have a tone pot. Now, how I can tell the tone versus the volume pot, the one thing I look for on that is the wire that's going to the center post on this pot is going down to my output jack. That's how you pretty much know which pot is which. So if you see the resistor coming off the center post, that's just normally your tone. If you see the wire going to your output jack, that's normally your volume. That's how I can quickly see which is which. All right. So I hope that kind of explained that. So we're going to first line all this up onto the switch to make sure everything's going to fit right. There's a washer that has like barbs on it, almost like barbed wire or something on it. What these do is when you tighten that washer down, it makes sure that it penetrates into the metal. So whatever surface like chrome on this will penetrate a little bit to that chrome to make sure that that pot is properly grounded. So these go on the inside of the switch plate. these pots, the wiring will be facing each other, and I'll show you once I get this a little bit tighter. What I mean by that, these soldering tips will be facing, one will be facing toward the other one normally. All right. So as we put this down, what I'm doing is I'm going to make sure all the wires are down into the cavity as I push this in, because if you have a wire that's on top of that cavity but maybe under the plate, you can pinch that and it could cause an issue. I'll put this. So this knob is looks brand new, right? And we're trying to go for a road worn here. So there's some ways that we can actually dull this down a little bit. So what I'm going to do is I'm just going to take some 1000 grit sandpaper and kind of rough it up just a little bit to make it not look so freaking brand new. Then I'll take a rag and polish that roughness back out, and it'll kind of look natural at that point. So what I'm doing is just taking some sandpaper and kind of hitting all the high points, all the shiny parts, kind of roughing it up a little bit, kind of making it dull. Then I'll take a nice cloth towel and clean off that a little bit, and then it'll look naturally worn. So now I'll rough that up a little bit. I'm going to take this buffing towel that I keep, and I'm just going to clean that off and try to buff out all the scratches. But when I do that, it makes it look actually pretty natural, about a worn switch. So that turned out beautiful. Looks very good. And that will go right there on that. That was the switch plate. The next thing we're going to do is we are going to go ahead and work on the bridge. Now I'm going to leave these saddles on there, but the saddles that I have are called compensated saddles, Telecaster saddles. These are just round where the string comes over. The compensated ones are kind of notch cutted, so you can intonate easily. So now what I have to do is get these silicone sleeves off of the screws. And the first one that we're actually going to do is this one that has the ground wire to it, because it's going to be a little tricky, because we're dealing with a washer, a screw, one of those silicone sleeves. So the first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to put the screw through here, and then I'm going to put this on. Then I'm going to put the washer on. And remember, all this is kind of limited space. Then I'm going to go back to hold everything together. I'm going to put this on that bare screw, and that will hold the washer and the ground wire and all that onto the post of that screw. So once I get that on there, then we will feed that into the hole and kind of get that screw started into the pickup. All right, so we'll hold it right there for now, because we still got two more to do. Now the other two are going to be a little bit more easier, because we're not dealing with the ground wire or a washer. We're just dealing with the screw and the sleeve. Now we're going to double check, make sure our wires are all where they need to be, and then we're about set. So we're going to put the screws into the ashtray, is what they call this. This is a vintage style Telecaster bridge. So I got to get the candle back out, because we know these screws have never had wax on them, and we want to make sure these are waxed before we put them in the hole. Man, they really did a great job of relicing these screws. They look a little bit rusted, a little bit tarnished. They did a great job. So I'm going to finish tightening up these pickups now. So what I do is I put a lot of pressure on it to make sure that when I'm doing this, that cushion starts to get compressed. And once that cushion starts to compress, you can really start adjusting this pickup properly. I'm going to leave it like that for now. Once I get the strings on it and I do my testing, I will be able to adjust that pickup without the strings on there and the saddles on it and everything. It's really, you get it in kind of in place and just leave it. I'm going to cover a couple other things with you guys tonight that you could do on your guitar that may make it easier for you to play. And it doesn't cause a whole lot of damage. It doesn't cause any irreversible damage. So what I'm going to show you may help you out, but if you ever need to sell your guitar for whatever reason, or decide you don't like it and want to go back, it's easy to go back. And that is simply how to take a maple neck that may have a shiny finish to it and dull or wear this down to where it takes that sheen and the stickiness of that high gloss. We can take that down, and if we ever want to sell it again, we can buff it right back out. It buffs right back out. So I'm going to show you how you guys can do that. Regular steel wool. This is 4/0 steel wool, and it's going to take that shine off very quickly. Like just what I just did then dulled all this out, and I could see that because the lighting that I'm using was very mirror-like just a second ago. But as I took the steel wool and I just took it on this neck like this, that mirror went to a dull light. Another thing while we're here, and I can show you in this light, there was a very bright spot on this pickguard, and I utilized a little bit of steel wool on that and got that to pull. We've talked a lot about road wear and relic, and how we really like the look of this road worn ashtray, and we like the look of this, but something kind of stands out that I don't really like, and that is the shininess of this particular pickup. I've got some 1000 grit sandpaper we're going to try and see what it does. The worst thing that we could do to it is we don't like the way it looks, the way it turns out. Taking a little bit of sandpaper and lightly scuffing this up a little bit, it's not going to take away from the playability or sound of that pickup, especially when we're not scarring it with like a 300 grit sandpaper. We're doing 1000 grit sandpaper, automotive grade sandpaper. And we're going to scuff this up a little bit, and then maybe go back over it after we scuff it. May go back over it with a little bit of that steel wool to kind of take any kind of marks off of it. All we're going to really try to do here is we're just going to try to dull this pickup up. We just don't want it quite as shiny. Let me bring this down and see if you can. That looks brand new to me. Take my fingerprints off, and you'll see what I'm talking about. It looks brand new, and we have aged parts everywhere else. So we're going to take that off real quick. It doesn't have to be real pretty. Our tape job doesn't have to be real pretty. It just needs to be effective. So we'll just simply take some tape, put it along this edge here, take another piece, come along that edge, this edge. Then I have this thinner tape over here we'll use to get this gap here. So we kind of protected our area right now. We have a little bit of openings on this corner because this pickup is round, has rounded edges. But we really, that's so minor. We don't really need to worry about that. What we don't want to do is slip off with our sandpaper, slip off and put a gouge in our plastic. So this is 1000 grit sandpaper. And we're not going to put a whole lot of pressure on this. What we're going to do is just lightly put it onto that pickup and run it over. We're not trying to gouge this. We're just trying to age it. And when things age, they may rub up against strings. It may, it's not going to be even. There's going to be some shiny parts, some dull parts. But we want to make it look as realistic as possible. So you want to try to get the edges too as much as you can. But all you're really trying to do is kind of take the shiny off. And I didn't press hard, but you can see that it's not as brilliant as it was. It has some scratches to it. You can see where there's a little ding here and there. And that's all we're going to do with the sandpaper. We're going to go back with the steel wool that we were using earlier. And you know the problem with steel wool and pickups, they don't play nice together, right? But we're going to simply take and kind of even out some of those scratches is all we're doing with the steel wool. And I am super happy with how that turned out. That looks like it's just an old pickup, not scratched up pickup. It looks like just an old Telecaster pickup. Believe it or not, I'm really, really excited about these freaking knobs. From the package that I'm looking at, they look amazing. I'm hoping they look as good as they do in the package, and they do. They are freaking awesome. They look like they belong in a museum somewhere because the aging process on these are just outstanding. So once to do this, we're going to need a small flathead screwdriver because they have a set screw right here, which is just a flathead. So we're going to test, make sure the screwdriver will work. It did on the other knobs that took off of here, and they do. So we're going to go ahead and get these put on. When I do this, these aren't so particular on where they go out on the post because they're not marked with any numbers or anything. So I normally point that set screw to where I can easily get in with my screwdriver. And then instead of just leaving it flat like this, I pick it up just about 1/8 of an inch off of the control plate. And then I set the set screw so it stays off that control plate. And I've had pretty good luck doing that because then it doesn't rub against the control plate. It turns really well. When you're setting that set screw, you want to get it tight, but there's no reason to kind of over tighten it and strip it out or anything. It just needs to be nice and good and snug against that post. So I set it all the way down, come up about that 1/8 of an inch, and then give that set screw a nice good turn. Now, y'all can call me a nerd if you want to. I can't tell you how excited and how impressed I am with just the knobs, man. Those are so freaking cool. So cool. It gives the guitar a completely different vibe, man. You're going to come in here, take these old saddles off, and put these compensated saddles on. I don't think the screw pattern is going to be the same on these as they are on here, but I hope they are because I want to reuse these aged screws. I just don't think they are. I think they're going to be different thread patterns. But we're going to cross our fingers and pray to the guitar gods that they will work. This is one of the positions when you're intonating a guitar or you're working on the saddles. This is one of the positions you have to be careful of with the screwdriver because you are really close to the finish on the back of that guitar. We are going to get to these tuners, man. These tuners look pretty cool too. I don't know if you can see them yet. I'm going to get them out of the package and kind of show you them. They did a great job on relicing these too. I'm so impressed with Fender and their ability to relic stuff. They do a really good job. Turn these. But look at the patina and the amount of dull and wear that these things have. First things we're going to do is we have to push these bushings down. All right. So I'm going to flip this guitar neck over and we'll get the bushings done first. Hopefully the holes are the right size. I do have some bushings that do fit this guitar. They're just not patinaed, but I think these are 9mm. Yes, perfect. In fact, I may have to hone them just a little bit to get these in, but I can hone because I have a honing tool. So this honing tool has blades all the way around it, right? And they're sharp on both sides. So whenever you need to make this hole a little bit bigger, you just stick this down into the hole and you turn it and it will hone that hole out for you. These are just a little tight. I mean, I can hammer them in, but I would rather hone them out a little bit before we do that. So I'm going to take this, put a trash can underneath it. This tool comes with like a little T-handle that goes on it. And I'm just going to take this and give it a good turn. We don't want to hone too much because then the bushings will be too loose. So now The way I push these all the way in, and I'm going to show you after I get these kind of put on, that they're not sitting flush yet. I have a vise out in the garage that what I will do normally, if I wasn't filming, I would take this out to the vise and put a piece of wood on both sides of the neck and then tighten that vise, and that piece of wood will kind of force those bushings all the way and seat them nice and straight and everything. What I'll try to do first is use a clamp, a wood clamp, and see if they will just clamp down. I got it most of the way down, actually. So we're going to try this again on this one. And then what I'll do is just finish tapping them down. That one seated beautifully. It went all the way down. If you don't have any of these wood clamps, especially these small wood clamps, I would highly recommend you go get them. I can't tell you how many projects I use these on. It's not just for clamping wood. They tend to give you that extra hand because you don't seem to have enough hands when you're working on a guitar. And you can use these wood clamps to kind of give you that extra hand holding things in place. So really do recommend you getting a pair of these. These are Work Pros. I think I got them from Walmart and never had an issue with them. I know some people are tool snobs and are afraid to buy stuff from Walmart or a cheaper place. But me, if it looks like quality, and I'm willing to give it a try. So these actually set and seated really well, except for the first one that we tried. All the other ones seated in perfect. This one could be tapped down just a little bit, but even the one that doesn't seat all the way is really close. So I'm going to take a little rubber-ended hammer and see if I can't finish tapping that down. We got our bushings in, right? So now we can work on the tuners themselves. Now this guitar did have some vintage style tuners on it that we took off, and we'll reuse at another date. So we don't need to worry about re-drilling these holes in here anymore. Very, very pleased on how this is turning out. Guys, this may end up being my favorite Telecaster ever. Now we still have to complete the setup and go through the whole process of adjusting necks, adjusting saddles, pickup heights, relief, all that kind of stuff. We still have a lot of work to do. So all in, putting the road worn stuff on here, all in, we're talking not much money. In fact, if I remember correctly, when I ordered all this stuff, I got one bill and it was like $120. I hope at one point we meet, and I want you guys to come see this guitar because I can't tell you how impressed I am with everything that came together on this thing. It really, really impressive how this looks, and I'm sure it's going to be just as impressive of how it plays.